We'll talk in a moment to the head of campaigns at Taxpayers Alliance, which has gone crazy about this situation. But first, Joe Ryle is the campaign director of the 4-Day Week Foundation. And Joe, you're saying at last we've now got this working in the real world, in the wild.
Hi. Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, we are really, really pleased with this. I mean, I think in many respects, it kind of smashes the expectations we did have in the first place. I mean, we know that already 4-day working weeks have been rolled out very successfully by hundreds and hundreds of companies in the private sector. And so this was kind of one of the first kind of major trials in the public sector. And, it shows that it has overall been a win-win for both the worker and the employer. I mean, well-being of the staff, the 700 staff at the council, they're much happier, much more motivated at work. And then on the other side of it, broadly, council performance has been maintained and it actually in many cases improved. So it surpasses the kind of expectations we had before.
OK, well, Elliot, in that case, what's the problem?
I noticed one thing that Joe left out there was he said it's a win-win for the employer and the worker, but he didn't mention for local residents. And the resident survey that was conducted at the beginning of this year, 2 years into the trial being in place, in that resident survey, they said of the 13 services asked about, they said 9 got worse and 4 stayed the same. They didn't say a single one got better. So, yeah, it's definitely a win-win for the worker. You get an extra day off, 50 days, 2 days off more per year.
People always say things are worse. They're not actually worse. It's just that they've got slightly older.
Listen, at the same time, 16, 17-year-olds will have turned 18 and be responding to that consultation. So I think the age range in that group should still be roughly.
I don't mean the old people. What I mean is
sure.
Things always seemed that they were better 3 years ago.
Yeah, you could potentially argue that. Businesses reported similar in the survey, though. They said that one service got worse, 4 stayed the same, and 5 they weren't able to answer about. So, listen, the response from the residents was absolutely scathing. And I think the key thing is the process, the way this was done. This was a 3-month trial that was begun in January 2023. And 2.5 years later, we've only just got a vote on it. And basically what the council did is essentially they ensured that it went on for long enough so that, as one councillor admitted in January, it couldn't be reversed even if it was voted down.
Well, the problem here, Joe, is that what we've got is a massive admission from people at Cambridgeshire Council, South Cambridgeshire District Council, a big admission that they weren't working hard enough.
And that's not true at all.
We're doing 4 days work in 5 days.
No, but look, presenteeism is rife across the British economy. And look, we've been working this kind of 9 to 5, 5-day working week for 100 years. So this is about moving into the 21st century and embracing and transforming our ways of working. And I think they've been able to do that. And look, this isn't just about workers and employers. This is also about taxpayers, because let's remember why they did this trial in the first place. They were spending £1 million every year, millions on agency staff because they couldn't recruit, they couldn't retain their staff. And actually, they've been saving £400,000 annually every year. So this is good for taxpayers, and actually many, many services have improved. If you compare South Cambridgeshire District Council, their performance across many other councils across the country, they're actually way higher. They're right at the top. So I don't think it's true. I think overall it's been good for workers, good for employers, good for taxpayers. And no, if the private sector can do it, they've done it in so many different sectors. Surely we now need to at least see whether this can be rolled out more widely across the public sector. And I do believe more councils will follow them.
Elliot, if you've been in charge of this council, would you have said, look, you've got to take a pay cut to go down to 4 days?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very reasonable thing. If people want to go down to 4 days and they take a 20% pay cut as a result, I think that's fair enough. And listen, to get back to the new and innovative ways that they've been working, the council published a really interesting document early on in the 4-day week where they described the ways that they were achieving their successes. And it was things like not going to meetings where it wasn't relevant to you, or picking up the phone and asking people questions instead of writing an email. It was really basic managerial techniques that the council should have put in place anyway. The council could have put in place while retaining the 5-day week. And listen, there are companies in the private sector for whom the 4-day week works, and that's brilliant. I think there's a lot of companies that, their week is reliable. But a council is a 24/7 service. If you have an emergency or a crisis in your social housing, you need to get hold of the council, any hour of the day. And if you're
they're open every day of the week, aren't they?
If you're reducing the productive capacity of the council by 20%, which is what they've done.
Well, they say they haven't, because they say that the employees are working harder. That's the key thing, that they've done something to make them work harder.
Yeah. So, for example, making sure that they're not having overly long meetings, which they could have been done anyway. And also, I think it's also highly likely that employees were working harder while they knew that the 4-day week trial was just that, just a trial. But now that it's permanent, I can entirely foresee the working practices that clearly were in place at South Cambridgeshire Council before, given how unproductive they were. I can see those working practices starting to leak back into the 4-day week and that's just a disaster for everyone.
I hadn't even thought of that, Joe, that they have gamed it so they look as if they're more efficient when they're on 4 days because the council brings in the 4-day week and then they go back to slacking.
No, look, I work with them quite closely on this. I mean, they spent months and months preparing. They had tons and tons of meetings with staff, looking at all of their processes, looking at every way that they work. And this is what businesses do when we work with them in the private sector. They actually, what they do is they focus much more on the outputs they're trying to achieve. So it's not about kind of just being there, hours work for the sake of it. It's really focusing on what you're trying to achieve. And I think South Cambridgeshire Council have done that. I think, they've innovated. We need to see much, much more of this. I mean, why are we so stuck in the past on this? We're so no wonder this country can never change for the better. Just we have a positive idea. We're going to trial it. All I'm saying is let's trial it more in new councils. Why are we so scared of trialing new ideas which are good for workers and give people more freedom?
Well, yeah, I was going to say to Elliot, well. I mean, we haven't mentioned AI at all in this, but it's possible that half this work could be done by AI in 3 years' time, and I'm not exaggerating. And therefore, we're going to have to get used to this. We're going to have to get ready for a much shorter week.
Yeah, and listen, I think AI holds massive opportunities for the public sector. We may be able to significantly reduce the public sector wage bill. And at some point, it's possible much of the economy can move on to a 4-day week. What we object to is a local council being used as essentially a guinea pig and local residents being used essentially as a guinea pig. And what we particularly object to...
Someone's got to do it. Guinea pig
put it in a manifesto.
Language.
Put it in a manifesto. Joe, put it in a manifesto. What do you think of the fact that this was never put to a vote until 2.5 years? And it was never put into a manifesto?
Come on, look, someone's got to go first, right? There's always got to be... Let's remember in Scotland, the public sector...
Yeah, that's what they say about the guinea pigs.
As well. No, the Scottish government have been trying
this. We've got to test it on someone first.
2 organisations in Scotland have been trying it. And you know what? The results show again, it's a win-win for both workers and the employer. I mean, look, let's just see if this can be rolled out more widely. I mean, come on, the Taxpayers Alliance are funded by the Conservative Party. You're always going to be against this.
We're not funded by the Conservative Party. That's factually incorrect statement.
Conservative Party donors.
Okay. I was going to say that's a bit of a stretch from one to the other, but okay, fine. Thank you, guys. Interesting. We'll leave it there.